Wisdom and Knowledge 5 podcast. Take it away, Gordon.
It's my privilege to introduce a man who I met for the first time on September 22nd, 2021, when the province of Ontario in Canada introduced the vaccine passport, and Kelly Hale refused to bow down and demand that I or anyone else show any private medical information. Someone that every freedom-loving Canadian every freedom-loving Canadian should know about. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast this evening.
It's a pleasure to be here, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Let's go back to when I first met you and just before, September 22nd, a date I remember well because that's our wedding anniversary.
I remember that, yes.
And nowhere could we go to celebrate our wedding anniversary except to drive an hour down the road to Jack Tuesday's pub down in Kingston, Ontario, an hour away from where I live. And I thank God that, there was someone standing up. Can you lead us to what led you to that decision? What led you to decide, I'm not playing this game. There must have been some thoughts going through your head when this was all coming down.
Well, I've been labeled a conspiracy theorist for most of my life. I've always questioned things. Like when the second so-called plane hit Tower 2, I knew that something was wrong with 9/11. I've been able to just discern those things for a long time. And I went through some troubles in my life the past 10 years. Things have happened. And it led me down a road of addiction with drugs and getting deeper into alcohol and those types of things. So when the pandemic was in full effect and I was closed for 8 out of 18 months up until the last summer that we were open, it gave me a lot of time to sit and reflect and dwell on things. And I just dug deeper down the rabbit holes and I found out the true evils of what this world was really about and how everything really is a spiritual battle between good and evil. And it led me deeper into addiction because I think more than anything, I was having a hard time really dealing with the truths of the world and how sick everything really was. So I got really gripped hard. And that was March of 2021. My uncle had prayed for me for over 15 years to find my way back to Jesus. And I texted him that day and I said, "Thank you for your prayers. God found me." And it just kind of changed things for me. And so going through all that and coming back to God, knowing the things I already knew, once I was in that position of getting my life right with Jesus again, I knew that all of this was wrong. This was not of God. It wasn't something that Jesus would promote. I just knew in my heart that it was wrong. And even with the way the churches were doing things, masking their congregation and pastors and preachers, encouraging people to line up to get the wham-whatamo in the arm. And it's like that's just not right. So I just knew I had to stand up to all of this. And I think the way he cleaned me of all my addictions in a real hurry, I think he did that so I could be in a position where I could stand up to this injustice and fight it the right way. Because if I was full of drugs and alcohol, I could never have done what I've had to do the past year and a half.
Amen. Now, a lot of places, what they did is you could go there and they would ask to see proof of vaccination, and you could play a little pantomime game with the server or the employee. They would look at your cell phone. It could be a picture of your grandmother, whatever. They would nod, and it was just for public appearance sake. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you do likewise?
Well, because then I just would have been doing things illegally as well. And the reason I stood up to it is because what the government was asking me to do was illegal. So I wasn't going to play their game. I mean, I've used this example several times. If you and your wife share the same medical doctor and you go to the doctor's office and ask for her personal medical information, the doctor's going to say no, and that's your wife. But yet, me as a restaurant owner, I'm expected to ask people for that information so they can freely come in and sit in my restaurant and have a bite to eat. Like, it just, none of it made any sense. So I knew I had to stand up against it.
Did you feel that playing the game the way, I'll give you an example. I just recently went for a pint of Guinness at an establishment I hadn't been in since the vaccine passport, and that's the reason I had never gone back.
Hmm.
But a friend invited me out, and all right, I'll go. I'll have one. We went out. We had a pint together, and they told me, well, they said, you've been in here before, haven't you? I said, used to come in here for a lunch on occasion. Haven't seen you for a while. I said, well, that vaccine passport insanity. And they had told me, well, you could have just, the way we were doing is if you just showed us your cell phone, you didn't have to have the whatever. And, but to me, if I played that game in a fashion that would be bowing down to this insanity, whether it's real or it's not, you're pretending it's real,
And you're partaking as well.
and
It's just like if the people that went out and got a fake the fake passport,
right.
well, you're buying right into their system. Like, no, don't do it.
Well, I want you to tell our viewers, because I thought this was brilliant, and I'm sure you knew nothing would happen, but at the entry to your restaurant, there was a chair there with a sign explaining that the chair was for the Ministry of Health or the public health official to check vaccine passports. Tell us about that.
Well, that wasn't even my idea. I saw it as another restaurant up in the Peterborough area. Trying to remember the name of it now, but they put that chair out, and I just thought it was hilarious. And I think if this was such a health emergency and they were so concerned, then why aren't they manning the doors of all these restaurants to check for passports? And I just basically put the thing saying, if this chair is empty, it means that nobody from public health is here checking vaccine passports. So how important is it?
Oh, that's brilliant. And now, of course, the reason your story blew up is because the province, the local health officials came down hard, incredibly hard. You lost your liquor license. Eventually, you lost your business. Take us through what happened to you.
Well, what originally it was September 10th, the AGCO came to talk to me. I put the sign up saying, say no to vax passports, I'll welcome a Jack September 6th. So 4 days later, the AGCO came to educate me. And I said,
before you go on, can you tell AGCO, Gaming and Control?
Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. So that's okay. our alcohol arm, which gives liquor licenses. Okay. So it's kind of odd, though, that the first agency that comes to see me isn't a health agency, it's a liquor agency about a health issue. So right from the get-go, I knew something was not right. And so they came, talked to me about it. I said, that's fine. I'm not going to break the law. I'm not asking. I'm not taking the sign down either. I'm not going to partake in this activity. So September 22nd, when they brought the vax passports in that week, it was a Wednesday. That week was just, it was crazy. Gangbusters crazy. 2 days after, on the Friday 24th, City of Bylaw, the Kingston Bylaw, the police, and the Alcohol and Gaming Commission all came to my establishment and gave me 2 tickets, one for not masking, one for not asking for Vax Pass. So that kind of started everything. And then, so of course I appealed those tickets. I said not guilty. I want my day in court. So we went through, we got everything done the way we were supposed to keep things going. And then when they came September 29th and took my liquor license. So there, once again, I mean, it's a health emergency, but taking a liquor license away is going to stop COVID somehow. So they were trying to stop me, and because they knew they felt if I got to notice too much about what was going on, that other restaurants and other businesses would not comply and do what I was doing, and they'd have a problem with that. Which, ironically, if only a few other businesses had stood up, it probably would have squashed it in Kingston in a real hurry. But I'm not, I wasn't there to judge anyone else. Everyone had to make their own choices. I get that, and I respect that. I made my choices. I just, in my heart and in good conscience, I couldn't stand with him on this because I knew it wasn't right. And I knew it was illegal and it wasn't right in God's eyes.
Why do you think more people didn't stand up? Do you think they were just so glued in on the news and what public health officials and just the talking heads were saying?
I think a lot of it's just fear, right? I mean, that's how they rule over us, is by fear and division. And the past few years, they've put so much fear porn and propaganda out there with respect to everything, and people are literally living in fear. So when the only avenue you have to find out what's on the news, if you're an older person and you're retired and you're living at home alone, you're putting on the mainstream media news. And when you're getting bombarded with all this stuff and the crap that they're sending out to people, is keeping these people in fear. So people don't know anything else, right? So it's really easy on that scale, the way they've done it, to manipulate people the way they have. It's really sad.
Well, industries, especially local, like in Kingston, bar and restaurant owners, typically they talk to one another. There's the Board of Trade, whatever. There are these different clubs, organizations. And when you were speaking to were you speaking with other owners of other businesses similar to your own when this was going down?
No, I did not. I wasn't. And they said the decision I made had nothing to do with anybody else or any other business or anyone I knew. It was just, I got to that point where I just had enough, and this wasn't right. And I had to do something in good conscience, and just my heart told me to do it. Like I said, God compelled me to put that sign up in the first place, to say no to Vax Passport. So when God asks you to do something, I've learned the past couple of years of my walk with him that you don't say no, and you still miss opportunities sometimes when the Spirit speaks to you to get something done. I just really believe that this was one of those times, and God never gives you more than you can handle, but he also doesn't set you up to fail. So if he compelled me to put that sign up and put me in this walk, he's not going to do it for me to fail. He's going to see it through, and that's starting to happen now. So we're getting some traction and some good things are happening. So it's going to work out fine.
Yeah. Fast forward us, because I think you, through September of 2021, I think you got up to 3 tickets, but I know you got 9 or 10 total citations. Did you
Yeah.
not?
So after the original tickets, then they kept coming back and adding different counts. Like if, they sent an undercover police officer in, if there was nobody wearing a mask, I get another mask count, another charge for this, another charge for that. So there ended up being 10 charges. So I'd been trying to get a trial date. So finally, June 19th, I had my trial date with the city of Kingston. And it was a Monday. And the Friday before the trial, the city prosecutor called me and wanted to make a deal. And I thought, okay, I'm not that slow. If you have been fighting against me on this and you think I'm guilty of all this, why would you offer me a deal? Why wouldn't you just take me to court and have these charges stuck to me, right? So I knew that a lot of the tickets were bogus in the first place. They were never legally done. It was just, they know they're in a pickle that way. So, but I still have an appeal in place with public health for the closure of my restaurant. That's very important. That's for me, the most important part of this, because it was public health that ultimately was responsible for shutting me down. It wasn't bylaw, it was public health that actually got that done. So, lost my train of thought. Where was I there?
You're saying it was actually public health that
yeah.
and you have a lawsuit.
What's that?
And you have a lawsuit going.
Yeah. So with public health. So with those tickets at the trial, the deal that they wanted me to take was plead guilty to count 10, which was operating with a suspended business license. And they would let all the other 9 counts go. 8 of those counts were Reopening Act of Ontario or COVID related. So they were trying to trick me, because in my mind, because if I had pled guilty to the operating with suspended business license, it would have tied me into my non-compliance in the first place because of the COVID issues, and I wasn't compliant, so it would have tied it in. So I said no, because I'm not guilty of that. So we went to trial, and not long into the trial, the prosecutor, we went to a breakout room and we talked about another deal, and I said, well, I'm willing to make a deal, but on my terms. I said, I'll plead guilty to one of the counts. And I said, I'll plead guilty to count 9. And count 9 was prohibiting bylaw from doing their job because I had a no trespassing sign on my door. Big whoop-de-doo. But that didn't have anything to do with COVID. I could have had that sign up anytime. So I said, I'll plead guilty to that. And they took that deal. And I said, okay, fine. And the reason I wanted to get that out of the way is because now, because those tickets got dropped, we have evidence in my next level of appeal in the Ontario Court of Appeals with the public health closure, because those tickets were actually in the order that they used to shut me down. Those tickets are gone now. They don't exist. So this is where it gets interesting.
Very. And what are you ultimately hoping to gain your lawsuit against public health? What is the ultimate goal?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Okay, I'll say it louder. What is your ultimate goal? You're in litigation with Ontario Public Health.
Well,
What is your ultimate goal? What is your objective? What are you hoping to win?
well, the objective is to get the 22 order closure on my restaurant overturned. Well, I can't get my restaurant back because it's gone. But if they overturn that, then everything else has to be kind of given back. So there has to be some way to deal with it that way. So I mean, I believe at some point they'll have to compensate me for everything they've taken. And for me, it's obviously that's important to get back on my feet and do something again. But more importantly, it's not about the money or compensation as it is that we were proven that we were right in the stance that I took and that we did the right thing. And moving forward, it's not as easy for the government to pull this on people, and hopefully more people realize next time it happens, because there's more coming in the future, as we know, that people have just have enough in them to say, yeah, I'm going to stand up this time too, because look what happened before. That's, you know, if it could change one person to stand up, then I'm hopeful and I'm happy about what I did.
Well, when you said that prior to making the decision not to play the game and not to check personal medical information and etc. Prior to you weren't talking to local business owners, to restaurants, bars in the area. Since all this has happened, have you spoken to bar restaurant owners at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No, I mean, I have a couple of places I still go to. We don't really speak much about it. I have a couple of friends that own businesses that, you know, they appreciate what I did. They just weren't, they admit they weren't in the position they wish they could have, but they couldn't. And I had no problem with that. I get it. But it's nice to get that acknowledgement to some degree. And there's other places I go to that, you know, I mean, I don't go out that much anymore anyway, so I don't drink really anymore. So, but if I do go to a place, it's not something I even talk about. Some people, if they bring it up, and I try not to talk about it really, especially in another local restaurant, it just doesn't matter anymore.
Right. Yeah, I know with myself, I don't like going to restaurants or anywhere now, knowing that if this happens again, and like you, I believe it's coming again, and I think it's sooner than we think. I think it could be as early as this fall.
I think it's this fall as well.
Yeah, and I want to know that there are going to be more Kelly Hales out there. And I agree with you that if just a handful in Kingston, a city of around 150,000 people, if a half a dozen, 4 or 5 restaurants had stood up, it would have made life very difficult in terms of forcing this onto everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm hopeful that when the next round comes, and I do get the sense that a lot of people are more eyes open, not maybe fully eyes open, but their eyes are open more. Only 5% of Canadians are up to date on their boosters. 95% of Canadians have gotten off the never-ending booster train. And I was just at a family function earlier today and talking about it. To an individual, 50, 60 people at this function, no one I spoke to has had anything more than a 3rd shot.
Good.
They got one, they got two, maybe some of them got the booster, but everyone's tapped out. I think my family, my wife and my youngest, I think we're the only ones who've had zero. But
Well, for me though, Gordon, it was like when this all started, I've always said it was bigger than me and my business because I understood what the big picture was. In all of this, it was never about health. This was all about control and about their new world order and what they're up to. So I knew this was all part of that plan. So that makes it easier to kind of deal with too when you know what's kind of what they're up to.
definitely. But I got to talk to you about the fact that, there are lots of us, and I'm in this camp, who say, well, if this happens to me, I'll stand, if. But you can't really know how you're going to react to something until it actually hits you in the face, until you have to put your head in the noose, so to speak. And I tend to be somewhat forgiving in saying, look, it's not my head in the noose. I would like to think that if I owned a business, that I would do what you did. However, when push comes to shove, and we saw what happened to you and how they came after you full bore, they took your business away, they took your livelihood away. You had employees who were thrilled. You had the most amazing waiting staff, most friendly, engaging, wonderful, and some of them had lost jobs over refusal. They had refused the jab.
Yeah, I hired, I think it was 7 people from healthcare that left the hospital or a healthcare environment because they were against the mandates. And I hired 7 people, front of house and back of house. Yeah. It was pretty cool.
It was awesome. And then not only did they take your business away, they took food off the table. They took those individuals' jobs away. Your restaurant was booming. You were a lightning rod. And now, I mean, tell us what you're doing right now. I know you've told me, but can you share what you're doing now?
Well, I'm working at a restaurant in Picton, less than an hour from Kingston, serving tables. It's a really cool Spanish tapas restaurant, so it's nice to be doing that right now. I have working on a few other things, behind the scenes to try and see what can happen in my future. But a lot of that's guided by my walk with the Lord. Gordon is ask him every day, what he wants and where he wants to lead me, because I'll just go wherever he wants me to go. That's kind of how I'm walking things out now. And I know that there's a plan and a purpose for all of us. When he wrote my name in the Lamb's Book of Life, I knew that I had a story that he had written, and it was starting to be unveiled to me. So it's pretty cool. I just pray every day that he keeps using me to reach others and doing what he's done with me. It's been pretty humbling how he's changed my life the past couple of years. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, coming back from addiction, getting into this fight, and you've hit what for me is very, as a professor, I myself am also a professing Christian, so is Mark. And for us to, I have to wonder if Christians are told it's part of our, it's the recruitment speech. You're going to be hated. You're going to be persecuted. And so you were able to withstand it because you're in the Word and that this is part of and in our secular humanist world, how many people are willing to be persecuted? How many people are willing to put up with hardship and difficulty? And, some people got the jab just so they could go to a restaurant or go to a bar.
Yeah, I never understood that. But like I said, I never judged anybody. To each their own. But yeah, a lot of those things didn't make any sense to me. But,
Yeah.
to each their own.
Do you think that there are still a lot of denialists out there? You know, Gordon put out some great words, New World Order. Do you think there are a lot of denialists who complied and, you know, still think, oh, there's no New World Order, there's no globalist, and they're going to continue? See, I think a lot of people will continue to comply if they do something again. I don't think there will be a lot of people standing up because they've complied before. You know, they've shown their signs before. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, see, you're right in a lot of ways, because everything that they do is just one big social engineering experiment. That's all we are. Like, everything is a psychological operation. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the Tavistock Institute. So that's out of London, England. That's basically, Tavistock is where everything comes from. Everything that happens in this world, every psychological operation, everything that gets done is dreamed up through Tavistock, and that's all part of the MK Ultra, all part of the mind control side of the world that a lot of people aren't aware of. So the manipulation is easy for them. So they're 10 steps ahead all the time. So when they do this social engineering experiment about something, whether it was COVID or whatever, and they're getting all the data, they know if there's 20 different outcomes, which route they're going to go. This is how the enemy plans things. So they know what people are going to, you know, how they're going to react, likely, again, whether it's a Marburg virus or some bird flu or some climate emergency they throw on us. They already have a good understanding of how many people are probably just going to comply again. And like I said, because of how driven by fear everything is, there's so many people that just can't get outside of that fear. So it's hard for them.
And you know, I always want to bring things back to faith. I mean, in the Bible, it says, in the English translation of the scriptures, the words "fear not" appear 365 times. We were not created to live in a spirit of fear. And it's not only Christians who have been standing up. There have been those of no particular faith who have also pushed back. But I find it's happening more with faithful Christians who are in the Word, who know we're not to live in a spirit of fear. And what do you think of this as something of an evangelizing moment?
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing too, is like you said, that a lot of this freedom fight and the people that were standing for our rights and freedoms, even if they aren't right with Jesus, they know something's wrong, so they're standing up to something. So they're looking for something. They just maybe don't know what they're searching for. So I found through the freedom people, I've met a lot of people the past couple of years that have come to Christ through this, because they didn't even realize they were looking if they knew something was wrong. So they're almost easier to reach those people because they're already questioning things and looking for something. So I find it's been easier to reach those people, you know, with the gospel and the word of God, for sure.
Oh, definitely. Go ahead, Mark.
No, what was it like for you to be considered somewhat of a hero for saying, I know you don't consider yourself a hero, but for doing the right thing and standing up? And how much was it hero versus, oh, he stayed open, the backlash?
Well, there was obviously some backlash, because there was a lot of people that just believe what the mainstream media says, and they wrote a lot of bad things. They made me out to be the villain. I was, you know, endangering the community because I wasn't masking people and I was, you know, going against the mandates. So that's fine. People have their views and I get that, but there was so much support. There was people driving from 4 or 5 hours away when I said no to the vax passports to come and eat at my restaurant. So that was pretty neat as well. But the whole hero thing, for me, it's never been about that. This, like I said, God put me in this position to stand up to this. And this is for him and his glory. And every chance I've had publicly, I've been glorifying him in this ride, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, plain and simple. I mean, he's got me to this point. And Gordon, we were talking about faith a bit earlier. I said, that's, you know, faith is belief in the unseen. And it's my faith that's got me through this far, because there's a lot of times when we go to an appeal and it wouldn't get overturned, and we had so much evidence, but they'd ignore it, and it was getting frustrating because they're lying and cheating about everything. But the one thing I didn't do is waver in my faith. And I knew that he put me in this position. I knew he was going to see it through. And it's his timing and his will. And guess what? His timing's never off. It's always perfect. So my faith has got me this far. And 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 that's the humbling part about it too, because the more that happens and the more he confirms in this walk and what's been going on, that just strengthens the relationship, and it just humbles you even more and strengthens your faith, because you're seeing the things he's done. And when you're deeper in your walk, you recognize those signs and those things a little bit easier and quicker, right? So it does change things for you. It's pretty neat.
You know, you talk about Gideon, you know, there's so many. I wish people knew the Bible better. You know, the story of Gideon, and I don't know it 100% fully. All I know is Gideon had 30,000, and God said, I don't need that many.
Mm-hmm.
Whittle it down. And I think he finally went to war with 300 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, God bless
Well,
you.
it's like Jesus said, pick up your nets, follow me, I will make you a fisher of men. And that's basically what our job is. Our job is to reach souls. It's all about getting souls to his kingdom. That's all that matters.
And when this comes again, and you and I seem to be on the same page and thinking it's coming this fall, and I think it's going to come this fall with the new booster shot that they're already promoting,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's not even approved at this point. They're already promoting an unapproved vaccine, quote unquote, vaccine again.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see coming? I see a return to the Vax Pass. I see a return to maybe masking. Who knows? And what do you see coming?
Well, I think all of what you just said is going to be tried. They're going to try and push whatever they can. See, they're not going to, they've already took us to a certain degree, right? They know how far they can push. So they'll know right off the hop if they can come out hard and just force it on us again to see what reaction they get. But they're going to force, I think, most of it and try it again. And we'll see where it goes from there. But obviously the non-compliance is a huge thing. If, like you said, if people are just less fearful and realize, if, you know, we have strength in numbers, they only have that power over us because they keep us divided and keep us in fear. That's why they do it, because they know there's only a few of them compared to us. So
Well,
we have to just not comply. And I know it's easier said than done, but we need that non-compliance. We need people to stand up for what is right and what is just and say no.
well, you know, talking about the restaurant here in my town that was kind of playing the game of, okay, I'll look at your cell phone. We'll pretend to comply to keep the chattering masses from screaming at us. I contend that we need more individuals such as yourself, more individuals who are willing to be openly defiant and publicly defiant. I think we need to see our churches full, because if there were more churches like James Coates and Tim Stevens and, you know, the church that you were attending in Napanee,
Yeah,
if there were more
open,
churches like this and more people being public and not quiet about their non-compliance, I raise eyebrows all the time, because I talk to people about the fact that I've never paid attention to any of it. I went to Kitchener-Waterloo. I went to Aylmer, Ontario. I went anywhere where people were gathering, and I shook hands around hundreds of people. And there were churches that were gathering, and there were establishments that were playing the game, but it was too quiet. And so how do we take over the narrative?
Well, that's the hard part, especially how deep the deception is in the church, right? I mean, some of the most deceived people that I've realized the past year are self-professed Christians, you know, and I get it, the deception runs deep. And when you're driving up to a church and, you know, they have a pride flag on their church and they're promoting masking and they're promoting the jab, I mean, like this, I cringe. It's so sad how things have got so twisted, you know, and Satan always went for the church. I mean, that was one of the first places he went to, corrupt the church, right? And he knew. And I hate to give him credit, but he's done a good job.
I agree. Yeah.
Oh, Kelly, you have an event coming up. I don't know. Do you want to share that? The event that's happening in Picton coming up in a couple of weeks?
Oh yeah, it's this upcoming weekend, the 12th and 13th. It's in Waupoos. at a friend's farm. We're just having a get together, you know, freedom people, like-minded people. Let's have a little bit of, you know, the Bill of Rights celebration for my tickets. The bylaw charge is getting dropped, and we've had a few other victories. My friend Dave Freedom, who's been very helpful in this whole process, has been supporting some other people too with convoy-related stuff. And we've been using the Bill of Rights through this whole fight and not the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So that's what's been stumping them. And I'm self-representing. I've never had a lawyer either. So that's made a big difference. But so we've had some victories using the Bill of Rights, some things overturned in the court. So it's gonna be a celebration. Just people to get together and keep people abreast on what's going on, and keep people together and talking, because this is the whole point. They want us apart. That's why they kept us separated in the first place through the pandemic, because they didn't want us gathering and talking and exchanging information. So that's important that we keep doing things like that.
That is huge. That is huge, but we have to be public about it and not do it behind closed doors and not do it clandestinely and not pretend to play the game by here, just show me a picture on your cell phone. No.
No, it's still participating.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
We need people who will stand up and get in the word, and there's no more powerful name than Jesus Christ.
Oh, amen to that, buddy.
Oh, we've covered just about everything, but you did mention the Bill of Rights.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that, I mean, my legal degree comes from the internet, along with my degree in virology and epidemiology. So tell us a bit about how you've been using the Bill of Rights, which most people think are the first 10 or 13 amendments to the US Constitution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we know the Charter of Rights and Freedoms came around in 1982.
Right. And
the Bill of Rights was signed in by Diefenbaker in 1960. So it's been around a lot longer. And in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Section 1A has a section called reasonable limits. So if you use the Charter and a judge, even if you have evidence, the judge, it's up to him. He can basically say, oh, no, reasonable limits, he can throw something out based on any thought he has and use that Section 1A as a loophole. The Bill of Rights doesn't have that loophole. And the other thing that's not in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is in the Bill of Rights, is enjoyment of property, which ties into me and my business. And what they do, they took away my enjoyment of property. So, yeah.
Okay, so the question I would have is this, and I know you're not a lawyer, but I know I met the paralegal with whom you were working and everything, and I don't understand this very well. It was always my assumption, and that's a dangerous word, that when our Charter of Rights and Freedoms came in 1982, that would have superseded any the same way we used to be under the British North America Act. And
it didn't. I mean, that's what they want you to believe. So yeah, the Bill of Rights is still alive and very well, and still has good standing. And they've tried to bury it because there is so many good things in it that's harmful to the government.
So when you go before a judge, rather than asserting your rights under Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms,
I would never do that. Never, no.
Because of Section 2A or 1A?
Section 1A, because then as soon as I invoke the charter, then it gives the judge that ability to play that game. And I'm not going to let that happen.
So, but the Bill of Rights, and how many rights are there in the Bill of Rights?
I'm trying to think how many total. It's not a whole lot different than the charter. Like as far as that, maybe a little less, but yeah.
Okay.
Just the Bill of Rights, it's just powerful, and that's why the courts have tried to bury it. And that's the same thing with the legal side of it. They've always encouraged me to get legal counsel, because then lawyers are just paid to make deals, and I'm not making a deal. I'm not admitting guilt to something I didn't do. So not only that, I didn't have money for a lawyer anyways. They're telling me to go get a lawyer. Well, they took everything away from me. You're going to pay for my lawyer? So it all worked out as it was supposed to.
So your dream, I mean, hopefully at some point you're hoping to, and I'll be praying for you that your lawsuit against the public health officials is successful, and that at some point there's some compensation for everything they took from you illegally. And then eventually, are we going to have a Jack Tuesdays reboot?
God willing, yes.
I'll be looking forward to it. I'll be one of your first customers.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I'll be seeing you this coming weekend. I already have it written on the calendar.
Good.
So we'll be seeing you in Picton. Is there anything you want to end off with, Mark?
No, I would just say, thank you for standing up. Thank you for knowing the truth and bringing it out that you've been a truther for a long time, talking about 9/11 and other things. And this will probably get taken down off of YouTube because I mentioned that. But anyways, thank you for standing up. Your insights were so great. The problem here is we didn't see enough people standing up, but it wasn't as tyrannical in the smaller cities. But you had people just worshiping politics as their way out. And Gordon and I have always said, Christ is the only way. No one's going to come and save you. So thank you.
People are looking for a political leader. I don't care how anyone feels about Donald Trump, but if you think Donald Trump is going to save you from everything.
Yeah, RFK Jr., you name it, Biden, you name it.
That's all part of the idolatry, right? Like you're idolizing a man and no man is going to save us.
Thank you. Yes.
And only the only salvation is in Christ. And as Kelly said at one point, he said, God does everything right on time. Maybe not on our time, but on his time. Everyone's seen the 10 Commandments. The Hebrew slaves were pushed right up against the sea, and they were complaining because God wasn't on time. Oh, God was right on time.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thank you again.
Yes.
And if you enjoyed watching this, I invite you to like, to subscribe. Please share it out. And when the next fight comes, we need more people like Kelly. More people are willing to stand on something on solid ground. And there's no more solid ground than Jesus Christ. God
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah.